friends, welcome to another warm North Carolina day. Today we're going to build for you a trellis so you can let your climbing plants make your garden more beautiful. So we're going to turn these 6 boards to this beautiful trellis. So here we are in the future side of the project. We're going to set it here. And as always, we're going to show you every step of the way so you can do it yourself. So the dimensions we decided to build this are 6 by 3. So it will be 6 feet tall by 3 feet wide. It is a matter of preference. You can go narrower, you can go deeper, right? Whatever you want. So these boards are 6 feet tall, minus the little bit of the top there.
The dog ear.
The dog ear, which we might leave as a feature for the thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now these are 5.5 inches wide.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to cut them in half.
Okay.
And we calculated that it is 2 3/4, right?
Right. And so what we've done is align the blade so that the blade will come down exactly on the center of a 2 3/4, so that you get that little bit of a blade curve out of both sides.
That should give you an exact, a perfect half. But if it doesn't, you simply take whichever side is bigger and you pass it through again, right?
Right.
And then they will be identical. So you're going to talk about only about an
Against
eighth.
your fence, but you're just
Right.
talking about a very minute section.
And if you want them identical, I
Right.
don't think it makes a difference. All right, so let's cut.
Okay.
When you reach boards to the correct width, it's very important that you keep your board very, very flush to your fence and that your fence is parallel to your blade. You can move fast or you can move slowly depending on your skill level and your comfort, but other than that, there is nothing really important. Just stay very tight to the fence and what you're going to end up is a very good result. This particular piece of board is very easy to cut through and our saw has zero difficulties doing so. If you do not have a table saw, you can use a jigsaw to make this cut or even a hand saw. It simply will take much longer than it took us, and we do have a saw. So we match the two pieces together and we have a very, very good match. The next step will be for us to glue them. Now, the reason we did that is because it looks better, thicker, right? And also it will provide more strength, more resistance to bending. Again, this will never have a lot of weight. We'll only have a plant on it, but we want it to be reasonably rigid, right? All right, and here we start the gluing process. Be ample. Put ample of glue on one board only. Again, do not put it on 2 boards. And then we're using a cake, what do you call it? A cake spatula?
Icing spreader.
An icing spreader for our spreading, but you can use anything, including things that are designed for this. Okay, that's enough. Don't go again. All right, let's do it. Use ample of glue, but do not overdo it. If you put too much glue, the pieces will slide against each other, and you're going to have a very hard time aligning them. They align?
And so you're putting them this way to begin with to make sure the boards stay aligned from side to side.
Right. And then?
And they don't slide. And then you're going to take some more clamps to actually do the vertical.
Let's align them. They're not perfectly aligned yet.
There.
Using clamps to align pressure both to each side and between the 2 boards is very important here to get a very nice and flat finish and to make sure your glue up is going to go well. As you can see, we don't have to use excessive number of clamps, but you have to use enough clamps.
So again, these clamps are to help hold the boards in place to make sure that the boards are aligned so that when they laminate, all the seams are together. These are to hold it
to put pressure down
in place, to put pressure downwards to keep the boards in place. Okay?
You think we need more, guys, or that's enough? So we put both of them one on top of each other because that way we are not using double the space. We're using the same amount of clamps, right? Economy of material and stuff. Because it's a nice warm day today, I anticipate this will not take too long to adhere, at least for our purposes. So while we're waiting for this to dry, we're going to start making our other cuts. A well-aligned miter saw is the absolute best tool for this type of cuts when you're cross-cutting pieces of wood, but a handsaw can do it. It just takes a little bit more time. A table saw can also do this cut, as can a jigsaw. So no matter what you have, this is not going to be a very difficult cut for you. You do not need a lot of tools and equipment to finish this project. So here we are. This is going to be our header piece, right? And we want to add a little bit of an interest to it, so it's not going to be just square. So we're putting a little bit of an edge. Is that an edge or a...
Yeah, it's a detail, curved
And
edge.
to achieve that, we just found from the shop a top we had, and we just marked it.
Okay, but what we did was understanding that we had a certain amount of length, and we measured in that was supposed to be the overhang, and in our case it was 3-inch overhang on either side from the width that we measured for the entire project. We marked at the 3 inches and then used this to create the curve.
So what she's trying to say is that our dimension, the width, is 3 feet.
Right.
So this board is longer than 3 feet, it's 3.5 feet, which makes the overhang on each side 3 inches.
Right.
So we went from the end and we made a little mark on 3 inches. And that way, this will end in essence on our vertical piece.
Yep.
And it will look great.
Okay, and then what?
Now, when we cut this piece, we're going to use it to make the opposite on the other, so it can be identical.
You didn't do it right, man.
Okay, you do
Come
it.
on, do it.
You do it.
Do it.
Identical.
Right.
All right, excellent. Who wants to do this? A jigsaw is the preferred tool for this kind of cut, and it makes an easy work out of it. Again, we're not using very expensive equipment here. In fact, this is just a Black & Decker jigsaw that I've had for many years, and it still works very, very well. It is corded. I don't use jigsaws very often, so I don't really have a need for a cordless jigsaw. And a corded jigsaw can cost you very little, maybe $20 or under. Again, you don't have to be perfect here. Just do the best you can and follow the line. And then you're going to use the offcut for the other side, knowing that your saw can cut the exact line. So the two sides will be exactly opposite of each other. They will be symmetrical, and your project will be perfect. Again, we could use here the bandsaw we have, but because of the size of the piece, the jigsaw is a much better choice and will give us a much better cut. Maybe a little sanding to finish the edge, but overall it did a great job in this. So use the offcut piece that you have to scribe the other side, and you're going to have a perfectly symmetrical process. This is the easiest way to assure that the piece will look nice, and you don't have to measure and remeasure and more than likely make mistakes in the process. You have the offcut, so why not use it? It will give you the perfect line that you need to cut.
Now what?
And here is our crown pieces. One piece. Right? And that just gives it a little more of detail, visual interest, right? That's about it. Next we're going to start cutting the little pieces.
The horizontal and vertical pieces that'll form the trellis
What are they
part.
called?
I don't know.
Sticks?
Sure, trellis sticks.
So having our vertical and our top sides cut, we're going to rip the rest of the boards to about 1 and 1.2 inches wide. And that will give us the material we need for the horizontals and the vertical slots that we're going to allow the tree to rise up, right? Climb
Okay.
up. Rise up, climb up?
Climb up.
Horizontals
Right.
and verticals.
Right.
Yes.
Not the other way.
Well, you know,
Right.
if you're lying down, is the other way.
So essentially, the 5.5-inch width board is going to get cut into 4 pieces. We've already got it set to cut at a halfway point, so we're going to cut additional boards at half, and then we'll set it and cut those in half.
Correct. Now, if you were not working to finish a video in one day, you should leave this overnight for the glue to achieve full strength, right?
Right.
But we're not going to do that because we want to finish the video. So we're going to just shoot 3 staples that they will hold the piece together while we continue working on it.
And by hold it together, we're just talking about if this glue isn't quite dry, we want to make sure that this is not going to wiggle or slide, right?
Correct.
So it just holds them in place for us to finish the project.
Correct.
We are melting in the North Carolina humidity heat.
We are melting, but that's not part of the project.
It is part
Part of the project is that we are starting assembly, right?
Right.
So we got 2 pieces of scrap. The dimension we want for the external measurement to be 3 feet. And that is what? Just
32 and a half?
32 and a half.
33 and
So we know that this is now square, right? Because all the dimensions are the same.
Sorry, it was 33 and a half, right?
It doesn't really make a difference. Because those are identical size, identical,
identical.
we know that this now is square, right? And we are going to start assembly.
Okay.
All right, so we put glue, and we've already marked to make sure we are square. Now we're going to align it, and we're going to use some staples to hold it in place.
And this is our header board that we had earlier cut out the semicircle.
And if you don't have staples, you can use screws. You can use screws if you want, or nails, or whatever you want. The other way, please.
Okay.
Do you want more or you have? You want two or one of these?
No, other corner. Other corner. There.
I want to straddle the two pieces. I don't want to be in the corner. Nails can also be used here if you do not have a staple gun or a brad nailer. Anything you have will work fine. So we've cut all our horizontal pieces, and we only attached the bottom one, so we have a reference and our system is secure, it is stable, I'm sorry. Now the rest of them are free floating, but we set them in a dry fit pattern, and also we cut two pieces of scrap that will give us the correct distance. So the next step is to attach them all, rinse and repeat, right? So
And the correct distance is just what we liked based on the appearance and what the spacing looked good to us. So
Right.
there's no actual correct distance, but we use this as a storyboard to make sure that they're all the same.
correct. With our horizontal pieces attached, we're now ready to turn this over to its front in essence, right? So we can attach the vertical pieces,
And why are we doing it that way?
because the vertical pieces go behind.
And they are intended to be flush with our framing.
Correct.
And you're going to attach to each of the horizontals as we go up.
Correct.
Okay.
And really, that just realized we don't need them to be 6.
So we created another storyboard to help with the spacing for the vertical pieces, and now we've glued and are stapling these as well. And then that spacer will help to align these and these, both at the top and the bottom. So now that we've got all the spacing done and the ends are all glued and in place, we're going to go back and put staples in where all the pieces cross to help stabilize the piece more. So we're set up at the chop saw again, and as we usually do when we have repetitive cuts, we have taken the original, set it up so it's in line with our blade, and set a stop with our clamp there, holds it in place, and then all we have to do is take the next piece of wood and line it up with our stopper there and bring the saw blade down.
And then it is rinse and repeat, right? But no measuring.
Right.
So the next step would be for us to make some legs. You can put it in the ground, right? You can make a hole in the ground, but also we decided to have it freestanding, at least for the time being. Later down the road we might put it in the ground, but for now we want it freestanding.
This one. Are we still shooting?
So using off-cut pieces,
Let's do that one last. This one here.
we are going to create some rudimentary legs. Again, this is not critical. You can use 2x4s. Ultimately, this will be buried, right? Under molds and things. So it is not a critical design. And the only thing you need to worry about is the distance from your house. So you're going to see one of our legs will be shorter because we want it fairly close to the house, right?
Right. Yep. Bring it my way just a hair.
Now the staples make this process nice and easy, but screws can also be used here, or even nails, right? And we're going to repeat that on the other side, and hopefully it stands.
I'll hold it and do it.
And this is our trellis, right?
Yep.
Here it sits by itself, the legs work. Again, when the plants start growing on it, and we're going to have a pot in front of it, it will be even more stable, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this is pretty much what we envision, right?
Yeah.
And here you can embellish it, you can make some carvings, you can write things, you know, there are a lot of things you can do here.
Yeah.
Like you can put a blackboard strip and you can write with chalk and change the messages, you know.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What do you think of this project?
I love it. It's very simple. It's not an extravagant, you know, or exceedingly complex build, but I think it adds a lot of beauty and character to the garden.
And the cost is $20 to $25. It depends a little bit on your area where you live. Earlier today, Siri thought I was living in Atlanta, and the boards there were $1 more in the same store. So I think $20 to $25 is a fair for most areas in the continental US, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Alaska and Hawaii, you're probably more expensive
Yeah.
than we are, right?
Yeah.
So it is not a very expensive product, right?
But I know you could not buy one for that price
No,
at
in
all.
fact, we're going to insert
Yeah.
what we found that they
Yeah.
cost. So you will save a lot of money, right?
Mm-hmm.
Doing it yourself. It smells beautiful.
Of course, because we made it with our favorite cedar.
And part of why we made it with cedar is, of course, it will be outside.
Mm-hmm.
So we want it to withstand the elements, right? Now, if we don't plan to, do you plan to finish it in any way?
No.
So since we're not going to finish it, this will turn a very rich gray, like all our cedar projects do, right? If you want it to stay this color, you need to poly it or do something to preserve the color, right? Or of course you can paint it, and that will also.
Right.
The problem with paint is every year you have to paint it again, which gets hard if you have a growing plant on it.
Right.
All right, we're going to go now and put it where it's going to live. And here we are with the finished product, and Diplandinia, our Diplandinia here, will be very happy. It is, as you can see, it's a vine, and it's going to find this, and it's going to populate it, right?
Yep.
Or do we need to rotate it?
Well, it'll need a little help to get started, but
So maybe tomorrow we can finish it. It sounds like it's going to rain in a moment. And we are very sticky and hot, and probably it's time for us to stop and edit the video.
Maybe.
So folks, we hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, give us a thumbs up or 2 thumbs up. If you didn't, hit the other button twice. Share, like, subscribe. Let us know what else you might want to watch in future episodes of the Urban Homesteading channel. For Professor DIY, Mrs. DIY, and Elpida, let's build something together.